So when we got married, Marion said to me, let's face it, we're a couple of collectors, but let's focus this whole thing. Let's not just scatter and pick things up casually. Let's develop a theme, and we'll follow that together. So one of the things we did was I said, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. And let's find the topic that it's going to be. So we have a collection that has cohesion. It's not an accumulation. It's not a hoard. Right. It's a cohesive thing. And so we started going to museums and antique shops. And we took one wonderful trip to New York and went to a number of galleries. And the question was, what did we both like? This is a joint project of the marriage. And paintings were out. Paintings were too expensive. I was a graduate student when we were first married, and then my first job as assistant professor, macaroni and cheese, really collect much back art. Well, we began focusing down. Marion said she didn't want China, which I liked very much. And eventually she said it's Africa, and she agreed.
Oh,
that this is significant stuff, it is very moving. And in those days, let's say it was Africa it appeared to both of us as the place to go. And in those days, you could get African things quite inexpensively.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's when it began.
That's incredible.
And
were you collecting in New York then? While you were graduate students, where did you study? The two of you?
Well, Marion Marion already had her degree from Indiana. She's a clinical psychologist too. I was then a graduate student at Washington University in St. Louis. So there wasn't an awful lot of money. But we went to New York one year and we went to call Matthias Komor. Komor had loaned things to the art department at Michigan while I was a student there, Chinese things. His name kept turning up places. When we were in St. Louis every year, the St. Louis Art Museum had a show. They would borrow things from the big New York dealers and put them out. And here they're undoubtedly authentic, the imprimatur of the St. Louis Art Museum. And of course, any profit would, the museum would have gotten profit. So this and so we saw things there. And so Komor was a name we knew. One of the things that was in that show was a Hanawa. Whenever we bought it, we had to both agree. We could be done. And I didn't like the Hanawa. I was wrong. We should have bought it. She was right. But we went to New York, and we went to Mr. Komor, and I didn't know what a private dealer was. So it was quite naive. We had the address, and we knocked on the door, and it was a townhouse kind of thing. Sure. There was no windows, nothing else. And a flunky opened the door, and he said, Mrs. Bernoudi. Well, Mrs. Bernoudi is a St. Louis woman who gives gold and enamel Byzantine things to the St. Louis Art Museum.
Wow.
And Marion just said, no, Mrs. Popplestone. But we wouldn't have, if we'd known what we were doing, we wouldn't have done this, My lady had a lot of confidence.
That's good.
So we went in, we talked to Mr. Komor and explained what we wanted, why we were interested, and so on. And it was quite a show. With a big light over a table. We had two friends from Maine with us. Big light over a table, and we put something exquisite, and we would talk about it and so on, and then he would take it away. And it went on this way for quite a while. But they were all very small things. Nice, but small and nothing moving. And then he said, well, he was American, but he had one of these lovely continental accents, which helps when you're in the art business. And Mr. Komor said, I have one more thing to show you, but after this, everything will be anticlimax. Which I said, but do show it, Mr. Komor. And that's when he brought out the centerfold fire splitter mask.
Excellent.
And he was quite right. My heart beat faster. My palms began to sweat. It was an emotional thing. Here was what we were looking for, what we wanted, and Mr. Komor's price was within our reach. Oh, and I see we have Mr. Komor's letter. Oh,
yes, his letter and his card.
Yeah. Well, it was over savers. At any rate, this was a great emotional experience. This was what we were talking about. This is it.
That's wonderful.
So. We agreed that the price was all right, but Marion said, we'll have to pay you over time. And he said, well, give me a down payment and take it with you. And Marion said, no. We will pay it
And then
over
you
time.
keep
And
it,
when you
yeah.
have it, and when we've paid it, then send it. And Mr. Culmer agreed.
I like